By before Shabbos, you should feel. Well, I don't have Yeah. Well, yeah.
Hello. I'm sorry. I forgot to leave the key open. Okay. Also, I forgot my shaper. So next time you come out, leave the shaper. Okay, so we have a little glitch here this morning. We didn't make the copies of the next booklets that we're supposed to be doing. So we'll print up a few pages so we can get started. And hopefully by the next time we give the class on Friday, you'll all have the booklet. This is a new booklet, not the one we did before. Yes. Right, so no one has the book. That's the previous one. I'll give you the previous one. I have to get it in the office, but the new book, we'll put it together today, and we'll have it by Friday. Yeah. Okay. I don't have any of the books, not even that extra. I don't have the booklet. With this, we're finished with this booklet. So we're not using that. We're not using that.
So I leave this here?
Yeah, oh, yeah, give me that. Give me all of them. Thank you. Okay. Whoever didn't get the first booklet, you never got this booklet?
I don't know. Maybe, yes.
I think you should.
Huh?
Yeah, this
I possibly did, possibly I didn't.
Okay. No. Let's get started.
Oh. I'll let you know if I did. It's not for today, right?
Yes, sir. This is the booklet that you missed. This is the first one. That's a maybe. I think we finished what we wanted to do. Okay, you know what? We do have a few things we can finish in this booklet. So who doesn't have this first booklet that we gave out?
I don't have it here.
Want to pass it down to Chedva? Thank you.
You like cry out.
It has English in it. So this first booklet was going through various sources in Tanakh, in the books of the prophets, where it talks about Moshiach. We didn't go into the details, just to see. There are a lot of things which we hear about Moshiach, but just to see where is the source. If there's a source for it, And what it means exactly and how to explain it and the details is what we're going through the class. But this is just to see, because some things are really have no source, it's just hearsay. And because Mashiach is such a phenomenal thing, such an outstanding thing, people like to add more details to make it even more amazing, but it has to have a source.
What about the money going?
So, one of the things that you might have heard is that in reference to Mashiach, there's two things. There's a time that's designated for him to come, and it's possible for him to come before the designated time. Where's the source for that? So look at page 36. Yeah, in this booklet, 36. On page 36, there's a line that's underlined, and that whole piece is talking about what the world will look like when Mashiach comes. And it finishes off with these words, I am Hashem in its time, and I will hasten it. And the Gemara, the Talmud says that itself is a contradiction. First it says it'll come in its time, which means there's a designated time. And then it says, I will hasten, he will come before the time. So the Gemara answers, the Talmud gives this answer that there are actually two possibilities. If we have the merit, then Mashiach will come even before the designated time. And if not, then there's a time that's already set that if not, we don't have the merit, nevertheless, by this time you will come. I remember calling the airlines once to redeem my points to get a ticket. So they charged me $60 because I wanted to make it very quickly. So they said, well, if you're ordering early redemption, then it's $60. So early redemption, oh, wow, how do they know about it? But that's what achishena means, early redemption, before the designated time. Okay. Then, on page 37, this is another source where the question comes up, when Mashiach comes, how will it affect the nations of the world? And the answer is that Mashiach is not only for the Jewish people, it's for the whole world. Not that the whole world will become Jews, but that the whole world will be united with the Jewish people in serving Hashem. Well, everyone will do what they need to do, and we'll all together serve Hashem. Where do we see this? Page 37. Look at the numbers at the bottom of the page. And all the way at the bottom it says, underlined, for then I will change the nations to speak in a pure language, so that they all will proclaim the name of Hashem, to worship him with a united resolve, which means all the nations of the world will be united together to serve Hashem. Page 38. Going out of exile has a precedent, and that precedent is when the Jews went out of Egypt. When the Jews went out of Egypt, it came along with incredible miracles. As we know, in Egypt itself, there was 10 plagues. Going out of Egypt in itself was the biggest miracle. There were slaves there for over 200 years. Then the sea split. They were in the desert, and they had man fall from Shemayim. They were surrounded by clouds, and miracles upon miracles upon miracles. Where do we know that when Mashiach will come, Hashem will perform miracles for us just like he performed when the Jews went out of Egypt? So this is on page 38. This is from the book of Micha. That's one of the prophets, one of the later prophets called Micha. And it says, in the English, as in the days when you left the land of Egypt, I will show wonders. Just like Hashem showed us wonders when we left out of Egypt, that's how he will show us wonders when Mashiach comes as well. Number 39, Mashiach will teach new insights of Torah unknown ever before. Mashiach will be the leader of the Jewish nation. A leader means someone who guides everyone like a king. He makes sure that everything is done the way it should be. But Mashiach will also be a teacher of Torah, just like Moshe Rabbeinu. But who's going to be his students? Everyone. Even those great righteous people that lived in the past, that were the biggest Torah scholars, they'll all be learning Torah from Mashiach. So it must be that he will be teaching us new insights in Torah that were never, ever taught before, never known before. And the source for this is on page 39. In the English, makes it a little bit more simple, but in the Hebrew it says, Ki Torah be'iti teitzei. For Torah, instructions will come forth from me. Again, this is referring to the times of Mashiach. So the Gemara says, when it says Torah will come forth from me, Hashem already gave us the Torah. So what is so unique? It means there'll be new insights in Torah coming from Hashem that were never known before, never revealed before. What's on page 40? When Mashiach comes, all those that are sick will be healed. The blind will be healed, the deaf will be healed. And this is on page 40 also, it's in the books of the prophets. It says, then the eyes of the blind will be opened and the ears of the deaf will be unstopped. The Gemara, the Talmud teaches us that it's not only the blind and the deaf, but it really means that all those that are sick will be healed. But it does say, being that the verse begins with the blind, that the first thing that will be healed in terms of those who are sick will be blindness. Page 41, 42. Three, 44, 45. Okay, I think we'll stop here. All this was just to show you that everything that's found in the books of the Tanakh is the most authentic source for us. Yes, we need to learn it, understand it. Is it a metaphor? Is it to be taken literally? But it's all with the source. The second thing we're going to be learning now that we have the copies, we can start. This is not the booklet, this is just for starting, but on Friday, Hashem will have the entire booklet. So let me give this out, and you can pass this around. Thank you. What we're going to learn now is Rambam, Maimonides. What's unique about Maimonides, and why is that one of the first things we learn? So I said this briefly in the beginning, but I'll mention it again. And that is that many things that we just read in the books of Tanakh, many things we're going to learn in the Gemara and the Talmud, things that are written in the Zohar, in the books of Kabbalah, things that are written in the prophets. It's not 100% clear whether these things are to be taken literally or they're a metaphor. And one thing is clear, that a lot of things are just metaphors. It doesn't mean what it says in a literal sense, but it means something metaphoric. But then we said there's one book that whatever it says in this book is absolutely literal. It can be a metaphor. We don't have enough? Yeah, okay. There's one book which is literal, and that is the book of Halacha. Any book of Halacha, when it says something there, whatever it says, it means what it says in a literal sense. Rambam is the only book of halacha that gives us the laws pertaining to Mashiach. So therefore, when we study Rambam, it gives us a clarity in terms of what is Jewish law regarding Mashiach. So first I want to begin that there's a lot of misconceptions about the subject of Mashiach. And one of the biggest misconceptions are that because other religions, like in Christianity, they believe in Messiah. So a lot of people who are not familiar, especially with Torah, when they first hear you talking about the subject, they're confused. It sounds to them like this is not a Jewish subject. But the truth is, not only it's a Jewish subject, it's considered one of the most basic principles of Jewish belief, like the pillars. All of Judaism is based on this. So the first page in the booklet that I just gave you has what we call the 13 principles of faith. Rambam, Maimonides, compiled 13 principles, and he said that all of Judaism is based on these principles. And in fact, here in school, after the holidays are over, after Yontif, that'll be one of the classes given by Rabbi Dubov to learn more in depth what are these 13 principles and why we believe them and what is it based on, what do we answer to people who have certain questions. But let's look at the first one just to give an idea. The first principle, and the reason it's written this way, because there are many communities, it's not a Chabad custom, but in many communities, people actually recite this every day. It's like you say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. So every day you say, I pledge allegiance to these 13 principles. And what are we saying? I believe with complete faith that the Creator, blessed is His name, creates and guides all creatures, and that He alone made and makes and will make everything. There's no other creator except for Hashem. I think we all understand that's a basic principle of Jewish belief. And the same with all the rest. Altogether, there are 13. What is number 12 in this list? Turn the page. Number 12 is, I believe with perfect faith in the coming of Mashiach. Even though He may be delayed, nevertheless, I anticipate His coming every day, which means that every day could possibly be that day that He's going to come. So what we see from this is that, and again, people recite this every day, Mashiach is not something which is controversial or not clear. It's clearer than clear that it's the fundamental principle of Jewish belief, the belief in Mashiach. The details, that's where we go more into understanding things and so on. So another example of this is the next page. At the bottom of the page, it says, Yigdal. This is a song that many customs start the davening in the morning with this song. And this song, Yigdal, is a song that actually has all 13 principles of belief, but in a poem. It's all written in a poem. And if you look at this and you look at the other page, you'll see how they correspond. So here in this song, which is, again, a poem to express the principles of belief, again, you have, towards the end, if you turn the page, by the end of days, He will send us our Mashiach to redeem those longing for His final salvation. So it's clear. I think, I don't remember if I mentioned this to you, but I just want to give you an example to what extent it's confusing. I remember when the Rebbe spoke to us about publicizing the coming of Mashiach and making it known, and it became a very big focus in Chabad. There was a woman that approached me. This is a woman who's been religious for a few years, lived in the community, and she said, I'm having a very hard time with this subject. Why? So she said, I grew up in a home that was reformed, very reformed. I said, what does very reformed mean? Very reformed means that we didn't have a Seder on Pesach. We didn't go to shul on Rosh Hashanah. We didn't go in Yom Kippur. We didn't practice anything, nothing. Only one thing my mother told me, remember that you're Jewish. So I asked her, so what does it mean? What do you mean we're Jewish? Belong to a certain tribe? So mother says, they believe in Messiah and we don't. In other words, she grew up that the definition of being a Jew is that you don't believe in Messiah. We don't believe in what Christianity believes, but we do believe in Mashiach. It's a basic principle of Jewish belief. In fact, Christianity was established by a Jew who grew up with the belief in Mashiach like all of us, except they just changed what the rules are. But the subject of Mashiach and the belief in Mashiach is as basic as everything else in Judaism. What?
Big time.
Okay, so now we're going to see the words of the Rambam. Now again, the Rambam, as I said before, is the book of Halacha. In fact, it's the first book ever written on Jewish law, compiled in a structured way. First one to do it was Rambam, Maimonides. And he has 14 volumes. And in the 14 volumes, it's broken up into 83 subjects of Jewish law. And the last subject of all the Jewish laws are the subject of kings. In Judaism, there's a concept of a king. And King David was a king, and Shlomo Melech was a king, and Moshe Rabbeinu was a king. So in the laws of kings, towards the end, it talks about Mashiach, who will be the ultimate king. And now we're going to read from this part, chapter 11 in the Rambam, the laws of kings. Let's start reading what it says. Yes. This booklet, I don't think I have any more left. You gave it out and you left nothing for yourself?
I want to go to.
Okay, maybe Mr. Yafi, if she hears us, we'll make a few more copies. Anyone else doesn't have a copy? Everyone got?
Yeah.
We just offered one copy. Okay. Starts like this: Hamelech HaMashiach. This king, which is King Mashiach, Asid Lamed Ulahachzir Malchus David Liyosh. In the future, the king, which is Mashiach, will rise and he'll renew the Davidic dynasty. He'll return it to its initial sovereignty, and he will build the temple and gather the dispersed of Israel. So this means that in Jewish history, we know that the Jewish people at a certain point was split in two. Initially, there was one king, King David. He had a son, Shlomo Melech, King Solomon. There was also one king. Everybody was united under one king. When King Solomon passed and his son became the king, there was a split. His son became the king, but there was someone else by the name of Yerovam ben Nevat, and he established a kingdom in a different place. Shlomo Melech's son was in Jerusalem. He established a kingdom in the city of Shechem, and the Jewish people split in two parts. 10 tribes went with the other king, and 2 tribes went with the king that was a descendant of King David. And which were the 2 tribes? Yehuda and Benjamin. As we mentioned in the previous class, that the 10 tribes were taken away into exile before the other tribes, and they never returned. And that's the expression that you've heard probably, the 10 lost tribes, which means that all the Jews in the world today that we know are basically from either the tribe of Yehuda or the tribe of Benjamin and the tribe of Levi. And all the other tribes is unknown where they are today. So when Mashiach comes, the Rambam is writing, there won't be any more 2 kings. There'll be one king. And who will that king be? He'll be a descendant of King David, which means Hashem will now restore the Davidic dynasty of kingdom, that he will be the king. Thank you. It's for Rosh Hashanah. Not Rosh Hashanah, for, yeah. So this this thing that Hashem will bring back the kingdom of King David, when you say the word king, in our ears in today's day and age, doesn't have a very good ring to it. A monarch, these are dangerous people, they're power crazy, and we know how more or less throughout the world, we don't have that anymore. We have a democracy, but that's because power corrupts. And people who are in power, even Jewish kings, a lot of them became corrupt and they did a lot of damage. And there's stories there's a whole section, one of the books of the prophets is called the Book of Kings. And in that book, Melachim, it talks about kings. Certain kings were righteous, certain kings were wicked, and they used their power to do damage. But in the times of Mashiach, being that that's a time there'll only be good and positive things, so the word king and the person who's a king will have all the positive aspects of kingdom and leadership and not the negative. So we don't have to worry about it. And this is what's going to happen. First of all, we'll have a leader again. Having a leader is a positive thing if it doesn't lead to corruption and someone who's going to be controlling and doing negative things. So we'll have a leader who's going to be a righteous person who's very much connected to Hashem, and he'll be Hashem's prophet who will guide us and lead us just like Moses and Moshe Rabbeinu. And he will rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. That's the second thing. We had a Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, was destroyed by the Babylonians. Then it was rebuilt later and it was destroyed by the Romans. And since then it was never rebuilt. And Hashem promised us in the books of prophets, there are prophecies upon prophecies, and we went through it, some of them in this booklet, is that Hashem will rebuild the third Beis HaMikdash, but who's going to do this? Mashiach. In other words, why can't we do it today? Israel belongs to us. I mean, we have an issue today. The Arabs will make a revolution, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is because we can't build the Beis HaMikdash until we have a message from Hashem through Mashiach that the time has come to rebuild it. We can't do these things on our own. So the second thing Mashiach is going to do is rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. The third thing is he will gather all the Jews from the world to come back to Israel. In other words, there was a very long time in Jewish history that Israel was the home of all Jews. All Jews lived in one country. And then when the temple was destroyed, people were taken away into exile. They were chased out of their homes, taken into different countries. That's the definition of exile. What started to happen was that people dispersed. And even after they came back, not everybody came back. A lot of people remained in Babylon. And then a lot of people remained in Rome. And then people started to spread to different places. When Mashiach will come, one of the things that will happen ultimately is that he will gather all Jews from around the world to live in Eretz Yisrael. And everyone will recognize that this is our country, and this is a holy land, and this is where Hashem wants us to be. The third thing is, all the laws of the Torah will come back to the way they used to be. There are a lot of Torah laws that don't apply today, and the reason is because they only applied in the time that there was a Beis HaMikdash, a temple. And there are other laws that only apply when all 12 tribes are living in Israel. So a lot of these laws we don't observe today. When Mashiach comes, being that we'll have the temple again, and being that all the 12 tribes will be living on the land, then even those observances which we stopped keeping, we'll be keeping them when Mashiach comes. I want to pause here for a moment and answer a question that nobody asked me, but I'll ask the question. And that is, we can understand that Mashiach is important. It's part of something we should be believing in. But why is it considered a basic principle of Jewish belief? In other words, why can't you imagine study Torah, keep Shabbos, keep kosher, observe the mitzvahs, and you don't believe that there'll come a time that there'll be these phenomenal changes in the world? What's wrong? Why is that? If you say you don't believe that God exists, Okay, that's like a building without a foundation. If you don't believe that the Torah is true, it's also a building without a foundation. If you believe that Moshe Rabbeinu can be trusted, again, it's a building without a foundation. But what would happen if a person would believe in everything written in the Torah? He believes that the Torah is the truth. He studies the Torah, observes all the commandments. He doesn't believe that there's going to come a time that things will change. No? What's so terrible? What? No, that I understand. But for example, we don't say, let's say that eating matzah is a basic principle of Jewish belief. Eating matzah is an individual mitzvah, commandment. But it's not one of those pillars, like a foundation that supports the whole structure. Believing in God supports the whole structure. Believing in Torah supports the whole structure of Judaism. But believing in Mashiach, why does that support the whole structure of belief in Judaism? Yeah.
Well, it's kind of there because we say other kind of foundation that kind of our future. Like if everything, purpose and everything was to lead up to Mashiach.
Right. So if someone doesn't believe that, and things will continue the way they're continuing. What's so terrible? It's not good. It's not good that there won't be that those amazing good times. But in terms of belief and all that, what am I lacking? If I don't believe that times will change. That's true, but that's not basic Judaism. It's just hope and optimism. It's an emotional thing that I'm going to be lacking. So one of the answers to this is probably more than one, like everything else. But one of the answers to this question is as follows. In a sense, believing in Mashiach is an expression of true belief in God. And if I don't believe in Mashiach, in some ways it really means that I don't believe in Hashem. And I'll explain you why. I remember one time the Rebbe was having a Farbrengen, and he was talking very passionately about Mashiach, about Mashiach's coming. And then the Rebbe sort of paused and said, there are people that are sitting in this room and thinking, what is with him? Every week he keeps talking about the same thing over and over again, and passionate about Mashiach, passionate that it's imminent, and it still didn't happen. And he's still passionate, and he still goes on. And then everyone elaborated on that as if reading people's minds. And then he said, so they're thinking probably he's dreaming. So if he's dreaming, why does he have to disturb all of us with his dreams? He has a dream. So the Rebbe concluded and said, you make a mistake. You guys are dreaming. What I'm talking about is reality. And I want to explain what those words mean. If you believe in Hashem, then the world, the way we see it, makes no sense. Does this world make sense? People dying, people hurting, people being tortured, people suffering. It doesn't make any sense. People do evil things and they make it to the top. People do beautiful things and something bad happens to them. The famous words, why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to good people? Nothing. It doesn't make any sense. Yes, with faith, we believe that Hashem knows what he's doing, but in essence, the world, the way we see it, doesn't make any sense. Person is doing good things, why should they suffer? People are doing horrible things, horrific crimes, and they seem to be doing fine. And in general, like I said, why should there be any kind of suffering in the world? If Hashem is totally in control, and nobody else has any kind of control, only he alone, why are so many people hurting and suffering, so much tragedy, so much going on in this world? Now, we don't understand, but the only thing we could understand, at least in our little human heads, is that whatever is happening now is a means to an end. Really, ultimately, that's exactly where we're going. There's going to be a time where Hashem will have the world in a place where it'll be bliss, physically, spiritually, like it says in the books of prophets. There'll be no tears, there'll be no crying, there will be no pain, no suffering, no illness. There'll be only abundance and goodness and happiness in the world. That makes sense. So what's going on now? Now is part of the process. We're leading. It's like a person who's going through an operation and he's a mess. he's in an operating room and they're cutting him up and there's bleeding and doctors are running around. But we know this is a means to an end. In a few days or a few weeks, he'll be up and around. His heart will be in perfect condition and he'll be doing things that he never did before, be so healthy and so strong. It's part of a process. While it's going on, it's difficult. At least over there, we understand it. But with Hashem, it's the same thing. If a person says, no, I don't believe that's ever going to change. I don't believe that. I believe this is the way it's going to go. What does it really mean? In a certain way, it means they don't believe that the world is running by Hashem. They think of the world that it's all nature. And in the natural order, they don't see things changing. Why would anything change? There's always going to be good people and evil people. And there's going to be this, and there's going to be that. So where does the change come from? So if a person is resisting the belief in Mashiach, in essence, at least on a subtle level, it means somewhere, someplace, they really don't have true belief in Hashem, or that Hashem is really good and kind, and that he wants the world and people to be happy, because why else wouldn't you believe it? Or that Hashem is not even capable of changing the world. No, when a person says, impossible to believe, yes, according to the laws of nature, it's impossible to believe. But if you believe that God is the creator and he's in charge, if he created heaven and earth, which means he created everything in this world, he created the DNA in our body, he created the stars, the moon, the constellations, he created the Milky Way, he created all of space. Now we're finding out that there's places out there that are millions of light years away from us. And he created, if you believe he created all that, then what's so hard to believe that he's going to create a world or lead the world to a place where there'll be only goodness and kindness and happiness? So if a person doesn't believe that, in a sense, it's a lack of belief in Hashem. And that's why it's a basic principle of belief. You follow? Does it? Yeah.
So why is it so hard to understand?
At the end of the day, I think it's because people are still stuck into just looking at things that everything is science and nature. They don't really recognize there's something higher. That's why. Because when you tell somebody, people are going to live for hundreds of years. Come on, you got to be kidding. It so happens to be that if you open up any book of science today and you open you go online and you look around, you'll see that science is now talking about the possibility very soon that people will live for hundreds of years based on all their new, developments in medicine, in technology. Crazy things are happening today. And that is just on a scientific level. And nevertheless, when you tell somebody Hashem is going to make it happen for hundreds of years, it's just hard because they need it to be confirmed and validated by science. If you tell someone, well, science says this could be, oh, okay, now I get it. When it says, when people heard before, we're going to fly in a cloud to Israel. Okay, it's very hard to fly in a cloud and not fall through the cloud. But the concept of flying on a cloud was like no reality to it. Today, if you tell someone that you can eat breakfast in America and you'll be able to eat supper in Israel, it's very real. No big deal. It's very normal. So the idea, the concepts, and we'll talk about this more, that a lot of the concepts that it talks about in the future, we're already witnessing things, even on a level of science, a level that is visual, that we can relate to. If you were to tell somebody years ago that you could be sitting in America and watching your friend a few thousand miles away, and you can tell me when they scratch their head. Come on, how's that possible? Today, you look at a screen, you can see everything that's happening. Years ago, there were people who had higher powers, and they could sit in one place and tell you what's happening in another place. It was something which is inconceivable. Today, every little kid can do that. So anyway, we're living in a world where Hashem made it easier for us to relate to these ideas, but the people who have difficulty with Mashiach is really because the difficulty is to understand and really get it, that the world is run by a higher power, not by nature. Okay, to be continued. I'll go out in the hall to blow the shofar.
In the next week's episode of Rabbi
What was that?
Next time that the
What?
Thank you. Yes.